Verifying that it's recording. All right. I am Mark Oakton, one of the coordinators with the Instructional Design and Professional Learning Division, the K-12 Literacy, Technology, and Talent Development Department. And that's a mouthful to try to keep all together. I get to work with the digital coaches and instructional technology. I'm glad for that. We have 4 of our coaches with us today: Jeremiah Salzman, Heather Gonzalez, Deanna Miravite, and Jamie Cothran. So we're glad to have these people, these coaches presenting who have done this quite a bit and know quite a bit about gamifying instruction. Real fast, let me have each of you, some of you have already started because you've done this with us before. In the text chat box, go ahead and let us know what school you're coming from. All right, we've got a small crowd here. We have Tartan Elementary School, a couple of folks there, Roundy Elementary School, Hurd Elementary School, Perkins Elementary School, some secondary representation with Liberty High School, Harney Middle School, and NVLA, and Cimarron High School, Legacy High School. Then we have Jidstrup Elementary, Smith Elementary, Eva Wolf Elementary, and Smalley Elementary. So a little bit of a good little mixture there. We are so glad to have you here today, and appreciate you taking your time to spend with us. We have an El Dorado High School that just joined us as well. Alrighty. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Jeremiah, who's going to talk a little bit about some background for gamification.
So one of the first things we have to look at when discussing gameful learning is that this is not about playing games. Instead, this is about looking at games, understanding what makes games engaging for people, and why is it that we as human beings are constantly playing games, and how can we use those elements within the classroom to help leverage motivation and engagement to improve student learning. So what we have to understand is that games are incredibly powerful. This is why human beings have been playing games since the Stone Age, because they actively engage us in this immersive environment. And you can get lost for hours just sitting down in front of a game and playing. Recently, games have developed a social context, and you can play with players from anywhere instead of being isolated in your home or somewhere else and not knowing anybody else who's playing a game like you. There's also been a new push with technology where achievements have been awarded that allow you to master skills, and many of our newest puzzle games also require a lot of higher order thinking. So these are all the things that make games incredibly powerful that we can use inside the classroom. So when we look at games and courses, one of the things we have to do is say, what is it that makes courses good, and what is it that makes games good? And when we do that, we see that there's a lot of overlap between these. So in games, we have very detailed and laid out events or objectives which correspond to our learning goals inside the classroom. Mini games have multiple routes or various quests, or even an open world environment where student choice and exploration becomes a huge part of the game. Guilds and squads and teams inside of games are used to help accomplish tasks that individual players can't accomplish alone. Well, that's exactly what cooperative learning does inside the classroom. The other things we see inside of games are achievements and trophies, which are used as extrinsic motivations. But one of the other things we find with games is that when we get that award, if 3 stars is the maximum we can get, but we only get 2 stars, we'll sit down and play for hours, try different strategies until we can finally get that last star. Well, inside the classroom, that would be that perseverance and that intrinsic motivation to continue trying until a student has mastered. And finally, most games have multiple lives, or you can go back and try stages over and over. And inside the classroom, that's just offering multiple opportunities for students to go back and continually try until they fully have mastered some content. So there are a lot of elements to games, but pretty much all of them can be kind of grouped down into these 5 areas. So we're going to look at the mechanics of games, understand that how we design the experience of the game really matters, what effect games have on motivation, a new topic, which is digital engagement, which really has only occurred in the last 15 years or so, and how the achievement of goals link in with our games. So here you have some very common elements to games. Now, this is not a comprehensive list, but it does give some that we are already currently seeing inside of classrooms, or some of you may be familiar with in other areas. Take, for instance, badges. Badges are not brand new to the idea of learning. If you were ever a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout, you know that badges have been a huge part of that organization. This is taking that same concept of recognizing intrinsic learning by giving an extrinsic symbol to what students have learned. Within our classrooms, we already have rewards. Many teachers have been doing that for years, whether it's a money system inside your classroom, or whether it's a treasure chest that, based on a number of points or anything like that that students earn by the end of the week, they can earn rewards. Avatars are fairly new with the digital engagement piece, but even in that areas we've had, if you think of class symbols or shields or crests, those would be the same kind of idea as an avatar. Points is not uncommon, and leaderboards is not uncommon as well. Those are some of them that you're going to see today. So one of the things we have to think about with a game is that the experience is as important as the game elements. So we can have a money system like you see in that life game, but that money system doesn't mean anything until you apply it to the situation that we're talking about, experience of life from when you first leave college till you retire. And in the game below, which is a massive multiplayer online game, you can have spells, you can have experience points, but until that gets immersed into a story, none of those game elements really mean anything. So it's really important that when we look at gamification and applying game elements into the classroom, we think about what is the experience going to be for our students as they are using those game elements. Now, when it comes to motivation, one of the things we really want to look at is how we are changing behaviors or developing skills. And when we change those behaviors and develop skills, one of the things that is kind of a natural outcome to that is we may see students find innovative ways to approach common problems, and when they're left with a challenge, they are going to see some successful outcomes. So games do this really well, and so I have some examples here, where the first one is this constellation chart from Skyrim, if you've ever played that game, where their skills are built into stars, and you unlock stars as you gain levels with specific skills. Well, the thing about games is we like to unlock that new level, and so we'll go back and constantly repeat a simple motion like shooting a bow and arrow. That's what this one is about, over and over and over, just so we can increase that skill. Well, imagine inside of a classroom where you have skill levels built in, where the students then go back and are working on their math facts over and over and over. They're rewriting a paper 2, 3, 4 times because they want to see their skill level in writing or their skill level in math facts go up. And that's the kind of motivation we're talking about. The same thing here from this Angry Birds image. They're aiming for those 3 stars. So if you have a star system where students are constantly looking to get that 3rd star, they may go back and redo the same assignments over and over, retake the same quest over and over, just so they can get that 3rd star instead of just only being acceptable with 2. And finally, even from our original Mario games, we understand that one of our goals is to constantly level up, and having those options to build in levels really helps students with their motivation to complete tasks, especially ones that they may find boring at times. Adding levels to it can really increase that motivation. And when it comes to achievement of goals, one of the great things that we get from games is that endorphin rush. As we have a goal inside of a game, once we reach it, we get that immediate endorphin rush that says, oh my gosh, I just accomplished something, and then that drives us forward into trying the next level and the next level. Well, that's the same kind of enjoyment we want to bring into the classroom, and that's where gamification can do that. When we chunk out student learning or student outcomes into manageable pieces, as students achieve those pieces, they get that little bit of endorphin rush, and that encourages them to move on to the next piece. They get it again, and now learning becomes less extrinsic and more intrinsic, that they're enjoying the process of going through learning and going through the activities you've set up. Now, one of the newest features is digital engagement. Now, we've had digital games since the late 80s, early 90s, but the big push for digital games really only occurred in about the last 15 years when online gaming occurred. So for the first time, we can take students anywhere on any number of devices, computers, phones, iPads or any other tablets, and now students can be engaged in those games at any time. Now, of course, that creates a little bit of a scare, like, oh my gosh, they can waste time, but this is also an opportunity for us to understand that kids want to be engaged with those digital devices, and so we can then leverage them through gamification to help teach our kids and help them learn better. So here's some examples of digital engagement, and the ones that are starred are ones that you're going to see today. Some of these are offered already by the district, like Canvas and Classroom, but others of these are paid services. So the ones with the dollar signs, those are paid services, and the ones that have free and paid, of course, means that they have a free service that doesn't have all the features, but if you are willing to pay a little bit, you can get access to a wide range of features.
All right, thank you, Jeremiah. Let's take a little pause here and see if anyone has any questions so far. If you have a question, go ahead and type it into the text chat box right now. And while you're doing that, I know that there's been a... Deanna, do you want to turn your mic off real fast? I'm getting some feedback. Thank you. If you're having a problem viewing, I know that there's been some questions about not seeing the entire screen. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, if you hover over it, you have a magnifying glass. You can make it smaller or larger, and you can adjust the size of the image just on your screen. So if you're having a hard time seeing the presentation, please go ahead and make those adjustments for yourself on your own screen. Okay, I don't see any questions popping up in the text chat box, so we're going to move on and look at what gamification can look like in your classroom. I'm trying to give you some ideas that you can go back to your class and use tomorrow. And first, we're going to look at quizzes. I think this is Deanna.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me? Give me a green check if you can hear me. Okay, good. Sounds like everybody can hear me. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration on quizzes. Some of you might be wondering, what is quizzes? Quizzes is it showing quizzes, Mark? There it goes.
No, there you go.
Quizzes is gamified formative assessment. It's very similar to Kahoot. So those of you who have seen Kahoot, it has that same trivia feel to it, except that in quizzes, you can have a student-paced game instead to conduct your quick assessments with your class. So it's not controlled by the teacher, where the teacher is displaying the question and everyone answers at the same time. You don't have to play it that way. Quizzes can be played live in class, or you can assign it for homework. The teacher can view real-time updates of student progress as they're working on this, even if they're doing it from home. You can also download reports, which is really nice, and you can also import them into Excel. So to do a quick demonstration of how quizzes works, I'm going to do an app share. See if I can get this to show my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see my desktop. So Quizzes is free for teachers. It's a free account. You just go to quizzes.com and you sign up for a free teacher account. Once you get logged in, I'm already logged in just to save us some time. That'll take you to this home screen where you see the fox. And you'll see right now it defaults to the public tab. This is where all the quizzes are stored. Anyone who's already made a quiz, it's featured down below, and you can do a search for quizzes in all the different content areas. I did email them to find out if they are going to have it searchable by grade. They said pretty soon, not yet, but at least you can narrow it down by subject area if you want. They also have a My Quizzes area. I'll be showing that in a minute. This is where anything you find that you want to keep, it will move into this area. You can also create your own quiz. You can access that up there on the tab, or right here on the main page, you can also hit the button for Create Your Own Quiz. Once the kids have completed the quizzes, you can go into My Reports, and I'll demo this in a few minutes after we get a quiz going. You'll see right now I have no running games at this time, but if I did, it would show me my students' progress. And then anything that's been completed, I can look at the student progress and I can download those reports as well. So I'm going to start quickly here with a search. So if I was going to search for, I'm just picking anything, nouns and verbs, you're going to see that right now I wasn't very specific, so it found 67,000 results. But I wanted to put that just so that you could see how many quizzes are in here. There's a lot. I think there's over 100,000 now in this bank. So it's really good if you can be specific when you're searching for a topic that you might want to create a game about, a quiz. So for example, if I put noun and verbs and I start scrolling down to see what's out there already, I just want to save some time, I don't want to make it from scratch, I can scroll through, and on the right hand side you'll notice that it's showing a quick preview of the questions that are in that test. So this person created one called nouns, verbs, sentence. There's 51 questions in here, and you'll notice on the right hand side that here are the questions that this person created for that test. Here's another one, 25 questions. I come over here and I can scroll through, and if I decide I want to take a closer look at this, all I have to do is click on it, and then I scroll down and I can view this question by question, and I can also hit the eyeball here over on the left. That's going to show me what the correct answer is for this question. And notice over here on the right hand side, they've set this question for 30 seconds. So when the kids play the game, they have 30 seconds to answer this question. These can all be changed. Okay, so I want to demonstrate how you would change those elements of the game. So up here, if I decided I wanted to use this quiz, I could actually just play it live with the class right here. But it's easier, especially if you find one that you really like or you might want to use more than once. I actually recommend that teachers use this button here, duplicate. If you use duplicate, what happens is you click on it, Quizzes will duplicate it, and now you'll notice up at the top, it now says My Quizzes. So I just took the other teacher's quiz, and now I've duplicated that quiz, and it's now become my quiz. Okay, so down here, you can add an image. This just means there isn't an image on the main page of my quiz. It's not required, but I mean, if you want to, it's really simple. You just drag and drop. So down here, you're going to see, I can see I have my same questions I was looking at before, but this time, instead of hitting duplicate, I'm going to hit the edit button. And this will take me to the quiz edit screen. Now, if I was going to create a quiz from scratch, you would actually come to the same exact screen. So whether you make one from scratch or you want to tweak somebody else's, you're going to end up at this very same screen. So just to save us time, I'm going to tweak someone else's quiz. You're going to see on the left-hand side over here the questions. Notice so for example, this person has a noun, 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 and then a verb question. So I can actually reorder these questions by picking them up. So I'm going to have a noun question first and then a verb question. And it's just that simple. You just pick up and just simply drop it where you want it to appear. So I'm just reordering those questions. When you click on the question over here, you either need to type the question or just highlight and change text just like you would in a word processor. It's nice, this person already changed the text to a different color, which is a nice thing to do if you have something that you want to stand out in your question. Up here you have red, green, and blue. So notice I can change the color of the text just to make something stand out. I can also do superscript, subscript, and then they've added a new button here this last month. This is nice for math and science teachers. If you have symbols that you want to put into your quizzes, they've got a lot of pre-made symbols over here on the right-hand side. The fractions is nice, so instead of typing 2/3 this way, I could actually come over here and use that symbol 2/3 and it would appear the way it would appear on a worksheet. So nice feature that they've added. This is a fairly new website, so they're constantly adding new features. They've also added new memes, and we'll be talking about that in a minute as well. You'll notice that whatever I do the question here, up here at the top, it'll say saved. It just keeps saving everything I do, much like Google does. So there's no save button, just every change that you make. Notice up there it says saving. Okay, so no matter what I do, it just keeps saving. On the right-hand side, it's giving me a preview of what it will look like on the student's screen. So notice that they can see the question and the answer choices. I just have to put the choices and then designate which one is the correct answer. And then I just have to decide how many seconds or how many minutes those students get to answer. This is really nice. If you're using quizzes for homework, I do have some teachers, reading teachers, that like to use this for homework. And they have longer reading passages that they want the students to read. So they designate the 15-minute time limit, so that way it gives the students time to read the passage and then choose an answer. So I like the flexibility there as well. So we'll just leave this one at 30 seconds just so you can see what happens. So as I go through and just edit my questions and make sure everything looks the way I want it to look, when you get everything done, you just come over here to the very right-hand corner, you'll see a finish button. When you hit the finish button, you're supposed to designate the appropriate grade level that this would be for. This person that I copied the quiz from, they left it all the way from K to university. They don't recommend that because every quiz you make, it becomes public for other teachers to use, so they really recommend, it's really helpful to find content if you designate a grade level and a subject area to it. So then you can hit finish and create the quiz. And then you basically just have a choice to make. You can play it live with the class if you would like to, or you can assign it for homework. What's a really nice feature with the homework now is they've added a Google element to this. I want to show that, except that I don't want to do it with this quiz. I'm going to go back. I have a fun quiz, a presidential one for you that we're going to play. And if you are watching from school or home and you have a phone, I'll give you a code in a minute, and you're welcome to join in on this quiz so you can see what it looks like on the student side. So right here, if I were to play this live, it would just display the code, and then you could join in on the game. If I assign it for homework, I just have to decide when I want this quiz to be due, and you have a 2-week window. So I can go all the way to May 10th if I like, or I can have this be, due tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Before you hit proceed, it's really important to scroll down to the question and game settings. I kind of wish that quizzes would have put this button down below, because sometimes people forget to come down and check these game settings, and this is really important. So before you hit the proceed, just scroll down, and then just check the question settings, because the default setting is to have everything on, but there are some things you might want to turn off. So for example, jumbling questions and answers. This is great if you're one-to-one or you're doing this in a computer lab and you don't want Johnny and Susie copying from each other because they're sitting right next to each other. You can jumble those questions and answers. However, showing answers and showing quiz review, this is great for feedback for students, especially in elementary school, but if you're teaching middle school or high school, then you might want to turn these off, because you don't want Johnny in second period telling his buddy, in sixth period what the answers are. So you want to come down here and maybe turn those off, and then once the deadline has passed, you can then go over the answers with your class. And then in the game settings, they are using means and points. Means are used for motivation. And the means, they have a new section I'll show here in a minute up here for my memes. Some people already have a collection of memes that they have, and if you don't know what a meme is, it's just those funny photos, cats wearing glasses with the funny saying underneath. Quizzes has a whole bank of memes that they use. They call it the default memes, which is what the setting is already set to. You can use those memes, or you can use your own, because they've now added the My Memes section. So you can change this and select your own, or you can even turn it off. I wouldn't recommend that though, because it's really motivational for the kids. Even if they get the answer wrong, they really like the memes and it puts a smile on their face and they're kind of motivated to go to the next question because of the memes. Another nice feature I want to point out is the leaderboard. It can be turned off. So if you're going to take away that competition element, there might be some things that are more appropriate where we don't want to pit, student against student. We want it to be more intrinsic and we want the student to better themselves. You can take that leaderboard off. The question timer also has a really nice feature. If you turn the question timer off, they don't have the pressure of having to answer the question in a certain amount of time, and they're going to get a set amount of points for a correct answer. However, it is kind of fun if you put the question timer on, because then they get 600 points, I think, for a correct answer, and then they get a random amount of bonus points. And that depends on how quickly they answer the question. So the quicker they answer, they might get 400 bonus points, and if they took a little bit of time to answer, they might only get 100 bonus points. So this is kind of fun. I have a lot of teachers that keep that on, and then that way the kids can kind of better their own score that way by having that random point factor in there. So once you get all those settings chosen, you will hit proceed, and then if you have a phone and you want to join this game, the students go to join.quizzes.com, and I have my co-presenters here if you guys also want to jump in on this game so we can show some data really quick. The game code is 231836, so just go to join.quizzes.com. And I want to point out while you're doing that I can share this on Google Classroom. So those teachers out there already using Google, you just hit this button, share it on Google Classroom. And then the nicest part about using Google Classroom is that the link in Google Classroom to your quizzes game has, it links directly to your game, but it makes the student log in. So no matter what screen name they choose for themselves, if they decide to, name themselves for the game I Always Win, well, they had to log in to Google before they gave themselves their nickname, and that means that when you go to look at their results, their actual name will be attached to their screen name. So it's kind of a bonus for posting your quizzes on Google Classroom. If you're not using Google Classroom, then maybe you would just have your kids join in and assign their nickname as their student number, just so you can identify them later. And I'll show you really quick, copy this code. And if you're doing this at home or from school, you just put in the code and hit proceed. You put in your name and then you hit join the game. Notice here it's going to assign me an avatar. So here's my avatar, and it looks like 10 players are already participating. That's awesome. Over here, if you haven't started yet, there's a code in the right-hand corner. You just hit start, and then what happens is you're going to see a question, and you have to pick an answer, and then you're going to get the meme as your motivation. So I have, who was the youngest president to serve in office? So I'm going to hit Teddy Roosevelt. I'm correct, and then I get my meme. And then it goes on to the next question. And you'll see that I have the slider bar at the top. It's just showing people are playing and my timer is running out. And even when you get the question wrong, it's kind of funny because you get the funny meme. Now, because I have this set to play until tomorrow, I can now go to my report. So while everybody is playing this game, I can hit view. And I can now view this question by question to see who's getting it right and who's getting it wrong. Okay, I can also even go and check my player progress. So I can go student by student and see how well they're doing. When everybody finishes the game, I'm going to go ahead and keep the game running in the background. I'll go back to this and minimize this for a second. So I'm going to keep that game running so you guys can play that if you want to check it out at a later time. I don't want to end the game right now, so if you want to check it out later, just write down that code, 231836, and you can join the code. The game will end, I already have it set up here, April 28th at 3:55. Notice even when the game is running, I can still hit edit, and I can even change that deadline, which is nice if you had a fire drill one day or whatever, you want to give the students more time, just hit edit and change your due date. And again, there's a My Memes area. I didn't get to point this out, but if you have your own set of silly memes that you wanted to use in your test or your quiz, you would just hit create and go ahead and import those in from your desktop or from Google Classroom, wherever you're storing those. In your My Reports, you can download here. You'll see a download arrow. If I hit the download arrow, it's basically going to give me an Excel sheet. And not everybody's done with the test yet, but just pretend that we were done with this quiz. So I just downloaded my Excel. And then you'll see on my report, it shows the questions. And then it shows over here everybody's scores and what they got correct. And it even color codes it for me, green and red, on what their score was and what they got correct and incorrect. So that's just a quick demonstration of quizzes. And now I think we're going to talk about Class Dojo.
All right, everybody, give me a green check if you can hear me, please. All right, I see those green checks popping up. Thank you. So we're going to be talking about Class Dojo. This is a pretty awesome program. It can be used as an app or on the web, so it makes it more accessible for you and your parents. I'm going to go ahead and screen share, and I'm going to walk through the website with you. I've already logged into my account just to save time. So as soon as you create your account and you log in, you will see on the top which school you chose to be associated with. When you click here, you will see all of the parents that are connected at your school. You'll also see all of the teachers that are connected at your school, and you can invite teachers if you like this and you want to get it going at your school. So when you scroll down over here on the right, you can see there is an Add a Class button. When you select this, you can choose your class name and the year so that you can archive it at the end of the year. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. I have a demo class set up. I'm going to walk through with you. So when you create your class, you open it up, you can hit the plus sign right here to add students singularly, or you can go ahead and click up here to copy and paste from Word. So I have a class, model class set up down here. I'm going to go ahead and copy these students, and I'm going to paste them. You just click in the box, paste your students, and import your list. You can choose to go first name or last name, whichever your preference is, and continue. It will choose an avatar for you. You can go in and change that later if you wanted to. Go ahead and hit save, and then your new students will be added into your class. If you also have groups in your class, you'll see it here on top. You can toggle back and forth between single students and groups. So if you have groups in your classroom, you can go ahead and create a new group, select which students are in that group, and create it. So when you're going through, I'm going to go ahead and go back to students. Over here on the top right, we have our settings button. I'm going to go down and go into edit class. From edit class, the first option here is class details. You can change your name and change your grade if you needed to. In the students tab, again, you can see all your students. Again, you can add them from here. In the parents tab, I just completely lost Google. There we go. From the parents tab, you have a couple of different options. You can download and print your invite, and I'll show you that in a second. If you wanted to do a paper invitation, you can choose another language. It's not an extensive list, but there is quite a few popular languages here to send those home to your second language parents. You can also put in an email or phone number. It will email them an invitation or text them an invitation that way. And
Jamie?
Yes.
I believe we lost your screen. Can anybody see the screen share?
Let me go back. try that again. Maybe when Google dropped, I lost it. All right.
There we go.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes.
I don't. All right. So we were over here in the Settings tab under Edit Class. Under Parents, here's where you can download those invitations. You can choose your language, and then you can input an email or phone number here. Another option is to get this PowerPoint and open house back to school night. You can have this PowerPoint and you can walk through it with your parents, have them get out their phones, give them the code, and have them connect from the very beginning of the school year. And if you did the parent invitations, it will look like this. They are individualized per student, and it gives each parent the code to get into the specific class that they belong to. So a lot of different options to get your parents and get them that access. Back in Edit Class, you have options. Did it lose again?
I'm not seeing any of the things you're seeing.
Maybe every time I show.
I can see it.
We're good?
Okay.
All right. Back in the Edit Class, you can choose your behaviors. You can modify and choose which positive behaviors we want to put in. So we're going to say we're going to give good manners a point, and you can choose what image you want to associate with it and how many points this is worth if the student displays that behavior. You can also have negative points in here as well if you want to have the option to take points away from someone throughout the day. If you're using this year after year, you can import from previous years, so all of the behaviors will just carry over year to year. If you are using this frequently, if your specialists are interested in getting involved, you can add your special teachers as collaborators. So when your students visit their class, they can pull up Dojo and give and take points away as well, which is pretty handy. Back in, I'm going to expand this. Let me know if you can't see it again. In the Settings tab, again, you have the Connect Parents option. You can have your students connect with their NVCCSD accounts. They have the option when they go in to view their behavior data as well, and they can also modify their avatars to something that they prefer. You can reset your bubbles for all of your points if you wanted to give them the opportunity to start from ground zero every 10 weeks, every semester, every trimester. And in your display settings, you can choose, again, your specific controls you want. Over here on the left, it says whole class. That's how many points your entire class has earned. So that would take your place of your marble jar or anything else you have like that. On the bottom, if you wanted to be able to take attendance in here, you can mark them all present, you can mark them all absent, and you can also mark them as tardy, which would be orange. You can award multiple points, so you say all of you kids are being great, yay, I'm going to give you a point for being on class, and they will get that point. If all of your students are being fabulous angels, you can give a random point. It will choose one student, and that random student will get a point. It also has a timer, which you can count down or use as a stopwatch, which is pretty handy if you're using this all day to have right there. And it has big ideas. These are videos that they've made. They have 2 episodes that you can go through with your students, and there are discussion guides to go with every episode. So kind of cool to have in there. If you are going to use this, I recommend either going on Teachers Pay Teachers or just Google Dojo menu or Dojo reward charts. You'll see some samples out there of how teachers are using these points to give rewards in the classroom. I recommend that each year you personalize this with your class to have your students buy into it and have them help you choose the rewards that are going to go on here. So you can do a Kagan at every table and pull those rewards together and then narrow it down. Back in Class Dojo, all of this was under this Classroom tab up on the top. Right next to it is Class Story, and in Class Story, this would be like your classroom Facebook page. You can post videos, you can post photos, updates of what's going on in your classroom. My daughter's teacher uses Class Story all the time, so every day I'm getting pictures of what's happening. It's nice to get that little glimpse for parents. And off to the right is the messages. And this would be your personal text messages between your parents. If you get this on your phone, you can have this with you at all times, and you're not releasing your phone number to your parents. It gives more privacy to you. I'm going to go back into Classroom. Just a few more things to show you. Up on the top right, we have this Review Reports option. You can go in here. This is what your parents will see. They can go in and check their students' data at any point in time, any day. On Friday, it does text them and email them, say, hey, go check out how your kid did. If you have parents that don't have a computer, don't have internet, I do have parents that will print this out and require a parent signature and have it returned on Monday. So just a few extra tips. Try to think about setting up dojo goals for the week to keep your students motivated, and keep your volume up so that when you're giving points, your students will hear that ding. It does keep the motivation going. So go ahead and visit classdojo.com/resources or /resources. From there, you'll be able to get classroom decorations. There'll be a video to introduce this to your students, and you'll be able to go ahead and get that open house PowerPoint that I showed you. So we're going to move on to Heather, and she's going to show you Classcraft.
Okay, Heather's having some technical difficulties. She got kicked off, and so she's going to have to come back and join us. We'll have her show Classcraft at the very end then. Jeremiah, do you want to go ahead and present some of this other information that you had?
Okay, let me go back real quick and do a quick demo of For All rubrics. I won't take too much time. One of the things I want to show you is when you look at standards, one of the things you can do with standards is break it apart into levels. And so I'm looking at just a small section of a geometry congruence standard, and there are 3 different parts to it. Well, one of the great things you can do in For All rubrics is you can design badging systems and rubrics and checklists and use those to help you keep track of what your students are doing. And when they meet certain standards, it actually awards them badges related to that standard. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is For All rubrics. You can log in using your Google account. The first thing you have to do is get your students in. So under the admin login, there's a way to manage students. And here's the great thing. There is a class code that you can give students, or there's also a link. So if you're using like Google Classroom, you can put this link into your Google Classroom, and when students click on it, it will automatically take them and help them log in for the first time and join your For All rubrics classroom. Now once you're in here, there are 3 different types of things you can use. You can use a badge, a checklist, or a rubric. Now one of the first things you're going to want to do is create a collection. A collection is just basically like a grouping of your badges or checklists or rubrics. I have 2 different collections going on right now. One is behavior badges, so these are things directly linked to student learner behaviors. And then I also have some content related rubrics and checklists on geometry congruence, specifically that standard we were looking at, which you can see it right here is Congruence Cluster A Standard 5. Click on the Create button, and here are your 3 choices. So let's start with badge real quick. You can put in your criteria for the badge, put in a title. Now, one of the things you're going to want to do is you want to make sure you go to Advanced Editing and add in some of these other things like which collection does it belong to, put in subject areas and tags if you want to. Now, this little box right here, students to self or peer assess, that's great if you want your students to be involved. If not, then just leave that unchecked. Up here with this little box, the little edit lets you decide what badges you want to use. Now, you can design your own badges, and this is what the screen looks like. You can choose shapes, backgrounds, additional graphics, which are just clip arts, colors, which are predetermined color schemes, and you can add text. That's great, but I'm not a huge fan of this badge designer. Instead, I like to upload badge images that I create using Google Draw. And so an example of that are some of the badges that I have right here that I've created all with Google Draw. And then once you're in Google Draw, all you have to do is go to File and download as a JPEG or a PNG, and then you can upload those into 4 rubrics using the upload badge image. Now, one thing to think about when you're doing badges is you want to keep those badges small to like 200 pixels by 200 pixels. If you need any help with your Google Draw and resizing the area, talk to your local digital coach or email any one of us and we can walk you through how to do that. Once you have all the criteria, you click Done and your new badge will be created. You can also do the same thing to create checklists and to create rubrics. I'm not going to go through the whole process of creating, but I will show you what it kind of looks like. So same thing with the advanced settings. And then you can set up different sections from right down here in the bottom. You can add different sections. And notice what I've done is for each one of these different types of transformations, rotations, reflections, and translations, there are 3 requirements that students have to meet. And now these become check items on this list. Once they get all of the items checked off, then they will have earned the badge. Until that happens, then they can just see the list through their own student portal. And for rubrics, it's much the same way. You can have different items across the top. You can still add your sections from down on the bottom. And you can have as many items in here with whatever levels you want to set up, and you can score points. If you click on advanced editing, that's also how you get to attach standards to it. Okay? Now, once your students are in and once they've gone to their classroom, so you do all the creation part in your teacher account. What I like to do is I like to turn over the awarding of information to the students. So here's an example of what a student account looks like. When they log in, they have a portfolio. And on the left side, they can view the different badges and different material that they've submitted. This is also where all of their badges under My Badges will be shown, just their badges. And then under Discover Badges, this is where the key is. So once you create your badging system, you're going to be able to assign each of those badges, rubrics, or lists to a classroom. And when they do, and when you do that, then students will be able to pledge a badge, which basically means they're going to supply to you the reason why they think they should earn the badge. So this was our checklist. So if I go to pledge that, here's where I can say, well, why do I think I deserve this badge? If I have files, I can attach files down here. And if I want to know what it takes to earn this badge, I can click on View Details. And then all of this information is right here. It also can be downloaded or printed. So that's great for students because then you don't have to keep supplying them with how do I earn this, how do I complete this. It's all right here inside of their For All backpack. And they can see exactly where they are. And so this is a great system for badging and checklists and rubrics, and I hope you guys like that little piece. So now you might be wondering, how are you going to start gamifying? Well, one of the suggestions is to start small. Pick a single unit, set up a clear path for what that unit looks like, especially with assessment points. Where are you going to assess and award different things within your course, within that unit? Pick your game elements. Lay out any rules. The rules are going to be very important. How do students submit work? How do they claim that they've mastered content? How do they engage within the whole process of the unit? Then you got to make sure that you collect any resources and have those ready to be handed out to students when they need it. And then don't be afraid to beta test with students. Maybe you just pick one student, one class of students, and use it just with that set of students instead of doing it to all of your classes right out of the gate. By doing it with just a set of students, you can get a feel for, is this working? Do I need to change the rules, pick different elements, or redesign the unit as a whole? So one of the first pieces of advice I can give you if you really want to help students buy in to this gamification is start with vocabulary shifts. So you can use things like quizzes become checkpoints, your formative assessments are quests. Students are, of course, the players. The teacher, you, are the game master. Student groups are guilds or packs or teams, or whatever the theme of your gamification may be, you can use that type of grouping. If you do enrichment activities, those become expansion packs or side quests. If you're doing big tests, big summative assessments, those become boss fights. And one that I really like is the idea of assignments, that homework. The homework becomes crafting. And then if you want to do things like, hey, I need a ticket out the door, or I want you to explain to me what you did on your homework, that can become a recipe. And so students are writing their recipe based off crafting their knowledge inside their assignment. By making just small shifts in that vocabulary, it changes the mindset so students understand that they're having a direct impact on that content, and it's all part of this game, and it's going to increase that motivation. And the other one I like is a review. Everybody who plays games a lot knows about walkthroughs or maybe cheat codes or things like that. That's what a review could become, is a walkthrough for one of your quests. Now, there are some concerns that usually come up with gamification, and there's two big ones, so I want to talk about those. And this really is a balancing game. There's this control, administrative control over your classroom and what your students are doing versus allowing them to engage in the game elements. And so that's going to be part of that beta testing. How do we handle the control issue with the game elements? And also, if you include student choice as part of your game elements, how do you maintain a clear and coherent course, especially in courses like mathematics that almost is strictly laid out, or writing, which is kind of a strictly laid out process? Then how do you have student choice and still keep that course coherence? Well, the suggestion would be use a flow chart at the beginning. Put those things together, have that clear learning path. That's going to make it really easy to know when you can release control and offer up some freedom to students, and when you really need to keep them in and have that whole group control so that everybody's getting the information they need. And you can also think about unlocking new paths. Many games contain this game element where you can't reach higher levels until you have first mastered lower levels. And so you can use things like prerequisites and skill levels. Inside of mathematics is a great place where you have multiplication facts. You could actually set up from multiplication of 1s to multiplication of 20s, and that becomes levels 1 through 20. And in order for students to reach math content later in the year, they will have to have leveled up their mathematics facts to level 10, 15, or 20 in order to have access to those later activities. You can also do player and guild levels. So as a student levels up or as a team levels up, they can't go on a new quest until both player levels and overall guild level is at a high enough level to go together and accomplish that quest. Checkpoints are another great place. Checkpoints are where students have to give stuff to you so you can make sure everything's okay before you allow them to move on to the next content. And a really interesting one that I've seen in a game I'm currently playing is something called time requirements. So once a student travels down a path, let's say a student really likes in writing, really likes the genre of fantasy and adventure. Well, that's great, and they've done a ton of work in that area, but now that they've reached a certain level in the fantasy genre, they are now have a 36-hour time requirement. They're not allowed to do any other activities in that genre until 36 hours have passed. So now they got to pick a different genre that they haven't worked in and work in those areas instead of their favorite. And that's a great way to make sure that they're still getting all that other content that they need. So we want to thank you for coming to our webinar on gamification. And if anybody has any questions, now's a great time to put those questions in the chat so that we can make sure we answer them.
While you're doing that, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Again, let me echo Jeremiah and say thank you. We do have a little survey for you to fill out, an exit survey for today's webinar. It's popped up on your screen. If you would just take a second to fill that out. And if you have any questions, stick around, type them into the text chat, and we would be glad to answer those. If you have no questions, feel free to exit at this time after you complete the exit survey by clicking on the red X that says exit in the top right-hand corner. Heather, go ahead.
Do you want to share the link to the Symbaloo for the resources?
Oh, yes, I should. We'll give them a minute to do the survey, and then we'll go back to that link. Thank you. I forgot about that. And I apologize to Heather. We've run out of time, so you don't get to see Heather's demonstration of Classcraft. But it's a great tool, and if you talk to your local digital coach, I'm sure that they would be glad to sit down with you and go through a way that you can use Classcraft. Jeremiah, your hand's up.
If you also want to reach out to me, I'm the only Jeremiah Salzman in Interact. I'd be happy to do a Google Hangout with you and showcase Classcraft to you and what a couple teachers I'm working with are doing with the program.
If the video feed was a little jumpy, you can watch the playback definitely, and you should be able to see the pieces that you missed. I'm going to go back to if you copy down this short URL, it will take you to a Symbaloo where you can access some resources on gamifying your classroom. Elliot asks, often when he brings up some sort of online supplement, students suddenly claim that they don't have regular internet access. What is an alternative to those students that don't participate in online procedures like these resources?
So a lot of these gamification elements can be done without any digital devices. In fact, many teachers were doing them without digital devices long before we had access to things like Classcraft or quizzes or any of the things we showed today. So you can still set up like a bulletin board that offers up the learning paths for your students. You can still provide paper copies of rewards or badges, or you can even get blank stickers, and then you can have students draw and design their own badges and give you the criteria for when they get to earn those badges, and then they have a sheet on their paper where they get to then, once they have earned a badge, get to take their own stickers and put them on their page. So that it doesn't have to be done digitally.
Okay, thank you so much for attending, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we appreciate your time. Let's give a round of applause to our presenters, Gianna, Heather, Jamie, and Jeremiah. Thank you, guys.